In this lecture, you will learn how to interpret the Acadience Reading Oral Reading Fluency scores and how to connect the assessment results to instruction. Here is an example of the Oral Reading Fluency beginning of year third grade screening results on the front cover of the Acadience Reading Benchmark Scoring Booklet. The test materials can be downloaded free from acadiancelearning.org. Now that we have scores, we have to learn how to interpret them. Acadience reading scores are interpreted relative to benchmark goals. The benchmark goal is the lowest score that predicts okay reading in the future. It is not where you want your average or typical reader to score. It is where you want your lowest, most struggling reader to score. All students should reach the benchmark goals. There are different goals for each measure, grade, and time of year. Benchmark goals are different from norms. Norms tell you where a student scored relative to other students who took the same test. Norms can change year to year. They change based on the students in the group. Students in the norming group have to be similar to the student you tested for norms to be valid. Norms don't tell you how much of a skill is necessary. That's the advantage of benchmark goals. They are an absolute minimum, above which students are likely to be okay in the future and below which students are likely to struggle unless they receive support. Here are the Acadience Reading benchmark goals for third grade. You can see that although the passages stay at the same level of difficulty across the year, the minimum score expectation increases. Students who score at or above benchmark are on track for future reading if instruction stays the same for them. They have an 80 to 90% chance of being okay readers in the future. Students who score below benchmark have a 40 to 60% chance of being okay readers in the future unless they get instructional support. Students who score well below benchmark have a 10 to 20% chance of being okay readers in the future unless they get instructional support. This is really the call to action. And because benchmark goals represent where you want the lowest student to score, the above benchmark score tells you where students need to be to put the odds at 90 to 99% of being an okay reader in the future. This is a much more comfortable place to score than just being at the benchmark goal. The order for interpreting oral reading fluency scores is accuracy, then words correct, then retell. If a student scores at or above benchmark on the accuracy score, consider the words correct score. But if this score is below or well below benchmark on accuracy, don't expect the student to be fluent and or read for meaning. Here is how these third grade beginning of year scores look compared to the benchmark goals. Scores in green are at or above benchmark, yellow represents below benchmark, and red represents well below benchmark scores. Start by interpreting the ORF accuracy score. If the student is accurate, check the words correct score. If it is also at benchmark, check the retell score. The only students who are expected to be able to talk about what they have read are the students who are accurate and fluent. If the student is at the goal for accuracy, but not for words correct, build fluency through repeated readings. More on that in the next lecture. If the student is not accurate, then I don't expect him to comprehend, and I don't want him reading faster. This is the opportunity to investigate the decoding skills further with testing back with survey level or giving a diagnostic decoding assessment. You will learn more about that process in the diagnosis and remediation course. The key point of interpretation is the accuracy score. We don't want to build fluency with students who aren't yet accurate. Let's go back to Aries model to orient ourselves to the kinds of activities that are going to build automaticity in these foundational skills. Remember, you can't have fluency without accuracy, and you can't have accuracy without the integrity of these strands that contribute to automatic word recognition. If we have a student who is a very slow reader and we find out that they're not accurate and automatic with the recognition of letters or their ability to segment words into component phonemes, what should we do about that? Well, we can give them practice with those component skills. Once they're accurate, we can get them to build automaticity. Structured literacy is a term that describes instruction that works for those who need instruction to learn to read and write, those who don't pick up on it incidentally from context. IDA is now using this term for what used to be called multisensory structured language. Structured literacy instruction is explicit, systematic, cumulative, multimodal, and diagnostic. Explicit instruction means the teacher has clear goals for the lesson and tells the students what she wants them to learn. The teacher provides a direct model of the skill to be learned. Familiar routines let teachers move at a brisk pace. Students learn what to expect through the use of routines and signals, so their focus can be on learning new content. When students make mistakes, teachers provide immediate corrective feedback. Nothing is left to chance, and the lessons are full of high levels of engagement with frequent responding. Structured literacy instruction is systematic and cumulative. Easier skills are taught first in a clear scope and sequence. New skills are linked to what was learned previously. The goal is automatic and fluent application of language awareness to reading at the word, sentence, and passage level, and application to writing. Structured literacy instruction is multimodal, which means student engagement is supported with hands-on techniques, such as the use of cards, tiles, and hand gestures. Structured literacy instruction is diagnostic and responsive. Assessments are used to adjust instruction and determine the amount of practice each student needs to get to mastery. Progress monitoring with assessments such as oral reading fluency guides the teacher's response to student learning. Structured literacy is different from typical literacy instruction in a few important ways. Structured literacy lessons come from a specific and detailed scope and sequence of skills. Decodable books are used to provide practice with skills that are learned in isolation. The focus is on the foundational early literacy skills and the language structures that underpin reading. The instruction of those skills is systematic and emphasizes the sound symbol relationship. There is an emphasis on word work and language comprehension. Both skill areas are important. Comprehension is taught initially as a listening comprehension activity through read-alouds. In structured literacy, students are taught to look at each letter in the word and sound it out. And once students are accurate with reading words, they practice those patterns in controlled, decodable texts. For young children, the goal is to build fluency in the foundational skills. In Chapter 8 of Speech to Print, Dr. Moats provides a standard lesson format for teaching the foundational skills that relies on processing the linguistic details so that fluent reading can take place. This lesson might take 30 to 45 minutes of the 90 to 120 minute language arts block. The rest of the time can focus on language comprehension, with read-alouds to model skilled reading, exposure to syntax and vocabulary, and story structure beyond what the students can read independently. Fluent reading at the sub-skill level is critical, whether you are working with young children and teaching them to read, or you are working with older, struggling readers who need intervention. This structured literacy lesson format can guide your work. Oral reading fluency scores are interpreted in the order of accuracy, words correct, and then the retell score. Students who score below or well below benchmark need instructional support. Provide instruction on the lowest foundational component skill that the student hasn't met the benchmark goal on, whether that is phonemic awareness, phonics, or reading fluency. Provide the instruction using a structured literacy approach and an effective lesson format. In the next lecture, we will learn about repeated reading and how to monitor progress.